I worked as a production designer and set dresser on Untitled Musical Duet, a theatre-inspired musical short. After brief discussions of the story, the writer-director shared with me a slideshow briefly outlining each of the locations in the script. I added photos and notes, and we communicated what she wanted each location to look like. The film featured one actress playing the same character, Erin, at different ages. To help the audience distinguish different versions of Erin, I wanted each bedroom set to be distinct from each other. We spoke about ways to signify Erin's character progression from younger to older, and a transition in colour from softer shades to darker demonstrated her character maturing visually. I created a range of different colour palettes for each Erin for the writer to choose from, and the selected palette was shared with the costume designer. To keep with the theatre inspiration, I wanted to stick closely to the chosen colour palettes and feature them strongly in the bedroom sets to make them look distinctly part of the character. I sourced props both in person and online. Some needed to be specific, like the mirror and satin sheets, so were ordered, while others, like most of the young Erin bedroom props, did not need to be as precise, just fit within the colour scheme, so I had freedom to browse several shops for items. A main feature of young Erin's bedroom was a poster wall featuring a range of musical posters. The writer-director created a presentation of popular musicals and their recognisable posters, and during a meeting including myself and two other graphic designers, the poster work was divided between us to create Greek versions of the posters, where the names were changed but main elements and colours of the original posters were kept the same. Both bedroom sets were filmed at Airbnbs, which had a neutral colour scheme, white walls and sparse decorations, which meant a blank canvas for me to work with. The young Erin set required more time to dress as there were more props to create the teenage room aesthetic. I wanted Erin's bedroom to look staged and laid out in a purposeful way, keeping strictly to the colour palette, similar to how sets are decorated in theatre and stage plays. Older Erin's bedroom was more minimalist, with few decorations and little personality. To reflect older Erin's more vain lifestyle, I sourced perfume bottles and beauty tools that remained within the colour scheme to allude to her beauty routine. I dressed the headboard in older Erin's bedroom to fit with the bed sheets and how I was dressing the rest of the room. Because we were filming at an Airbnb, I had to be careful not to damage the headboard, so I used a crushed velvet fabric to cover it and pins to hold the material in place. On Can You Hear the Choir, I worked as a production designer as well as a special effects artist. My main responsibilities were creating the monster, his hands and the no-mouth effect. After designs of the monster were finalised, I began planning how I was going to build him. The first step, giving him a nickname, Jerry. The base of the model consisted of several hollow cardboard boxes since I was conscious Jerry needed to be transportable and manoeuvrable around set. I used a wooden rod to act as a spine to support the model and layered scrunched newspaper to flesh out the rough body shape, and then began paper macheing and repeated this several times to add more details. Once the rough body was finished, I moved on to creating the arms. I added another piece of wood across the shoulders and fixed it to the spine so that the weight of the arms would be supported. Next, I began making the head. I used newspaper and cardboard to create the rough shape and foil to begin adding structure to the face. Once I was happy with the proportions and layout, I paper mache'd over the foil and used clay to finish building up the features. I used several coats of matte white paint to ensure a smooth finish and used a sponge to stipple light grey paint to add texture. To finalise the model, I added his hair, using a hair rooting tool and hand rooted each 3 to 4 strand clump. Jerry's hands in the film needed to be articulate, to move and interact, something a model wouldn't be able to do. After discussing with the writer-director, I began making a pair of gloves that he would wear to stand in as a hand actor. I used a pair of plain cotton gloves as the base, as the porous material bonds well to latex. I used wire to measure out the length of each finger and to support them as they needed to be strong enough to move and push against things. I layered tape and thick tissue paper to flesh out the fingers and create the rough finger shape, and then began layering tissue and latex over the entire glove and adding details like veins and knuckles to make them look creepy, and finished them off with matte paint and a set of nails. For the no-mouth makeup, I continued practicing and refining my methods. I practiced creating a cover for the mouth ahead of time to save time applying on shoot days. I layered tissue and latex onto an acetate sheet, which when removed ensured one side was smooth and easier to apply makeup onto. I also practiced applying this method onto other people in preparation for working on the actor. Before filming, we had a costume fitting and makeup test with the actor. This test was crucial as it was the last chance to prepare any major changes, and as it turns out some changes were needed. In all of my practices and experimentations, I'd only applied the mouth covers and blended them on myself or my female housemates, and I hadn't considered the size difference of a male face and the different colours needed for blending areas of stubble. Overall, the test went well. Despite not looking how I wanted the finished makeup to be, I knew how to change it to achieve the look I needed. For Reverie, I was the art director, production designer, and took on the roles of photographer and producer. In Reverie, I'm using aspects from fashion, art, and experimental film to express the emotions surrounding dissociation, depersonalization, and derealization, a complex topic with many conflicting and intricate emotions that are difficult to articulate and express. I broke my idea down into 5 distinct shoots to embody one main emotion, each with a separate colour scheme and makeup look. To achieve the hazy, dreamlike effect in my photos, I used practical methods and lens objects to blur and obscure the images in different ways. I used thick plastic over the lens, a flash bar, and colour gels and prisms. I loved the way prisms split up the image dynamics and introduce other colours into the shot. Despite each shoot having its own specific colour to represent the corresponding emotions, there is a degree of overlap between them, and the colours brought in by the prisms help to allude to this. Along with breaking down and planning the specifics of background materials, I also planned the makeup looks for each shoot. Inspired by high fashion editorial makeup, I incorporated moods for each shoot into the makeup look, focusing on the eyes. On shoot days, I made some final changes to the makeup, such as rhinestone placement and different adjustments to better suit each model. To further improve the fit of each look, I got each model to apply their own base makeup while I set up the backgrounds so that I could go in with the eyeshadow and glitter to finish the look. In each shoot, I took around 500 photos that I then narrowed down to the few used in the finished editorial and promo materials.